This is today's daily briefing, and you are most welcome to it. 2 dead cats, some racists, Teddy Sheringham, a countdown to oblivion, and a section of the show that I like to call Let Me Debunk That Deli Alley Myth for You. Dead cats, that's something eye-catching, smelly and awful. The idea is that you throw onto the table to avert people's gaze from that direction to t'other. And the Daily Mail has hit us with a simultaneous bout of dead cattery with the claim that Daniel Levy is rumoured to be in advanced talks for naming rights on Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and a deal could be confirmed before the new season. It has been more than 2 years since Tottenham Hotspur Stadium opened, and it still does not have a naming rights sponsor, but sources claim Levy and the Spurs hierarchy are close to a breakthrough. This has been a prolonged saga, and it's been longer than 2 years. I was unfortunate enough to be have shared with me some photos of this sort of, the glossy brochure hardback thing, no expense spared, that was designed to woo potential investors. I must have had that about 4 years ago. This was in-house. Levy couldn't get anywhere. He put it out to a firm in the West End of London who have a tremendous reputation in this sector. He took it back from them. Then there's been this sort of inertia. And now this comes out on the same day that Spurs are rocked by a departure of a key player, bracing themselves for a big name departure, blah, 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 blah. And it actually turns around to be Simon Felstein, the Director of Communications, leaving Tottenham after 15 years. How long do people stay in admin positions for big companies? I think 15 years is a hell of a long time, keeping yourself under a radar. Apparently Spurs were surprised to receive an email last week with one person describing the reaction as one of shock. Felstein is a savvy operator, is well regarded, and has impressively fulfilled an often difficult role. I would say he's sustained himself in a position which I would suspect to be bloody awful on a continued basis. And of course, he's been rewarded for all his hard labours for the club with a nice fresh dose, a fresh dollop of gardening leave. 3 months, 90 days gardening leave for Simon for all his efforts. All I can say is I hope the next guy can act like a communications officer and less like a half-cut Girl Scout whispering away the names of all the boys she fancies. Feeding imbecilic reporters with BS is absolutely unhelpful. It's called disinformation, and Felstein has been extremely guilty of whispering in the ears of people who should just be reporting facts and sharing them with us, unless they can provide insight and analysis. I've seen no evidence of that to date, just a lot of mumbling about I'm hearing and so I've been told, which in the main was absolutely wide of the mark. We had, I had Alasdair telling us that was it White Hart Lane? Hotspur Way had never been so calm. That was 24 hours before Poch was ejected from the building. And then he told us after Mourinho was fired that they're expected to announce somebody within 7 to 10 days or whatever it was. So hopefully the first words we get from the new guy are, "I'm just muting you now, Alasdair." Racists mar England defeat. I'm going to point out for those of you that are slow, stupid and argumentative for no good reason that I don't think racism is a good thing. There appears to be an undercurrent of where unless you're virtue signalling and making all these sort of empty gestures, then you're under the gaze of suspicion when it comes to these matters. What I would say, which is going to infuriate a few of you, and I good, because I want you to think. That's what the whole point of this thing is. I don't want you to shout and send me money. I want you to think, engage your brain. Extending the logic of all the kneeling, the next legitimate step, logically, is for the players now to kneel on both knees, isn't it? If we double down on this nonsense, then it's clearly, you know, we weren't raising enough awareness. So both needs from here on in, and we'll stamp out. No, it's not going to happen. It starts in the home, it starts in the school. I caught an interesting thing last night, actually. I was listening to Will Self doing this bizarre sort of bus tour of the country, and he went over to Northern Ireland and spoke with a poet friend of his, and he said, you know, what's going to happen here? You know, some people think they regard themselves as British, other people regard themselves as Irish. How can we get the nation kind of fused and healed? What would be the right thing? And the guy turned around and he said, it starts in the school. He said, they're schooled separately. So you have the kids coming from two totally separate directions. And this is what we need to do with racism. Not shouting at people on social media and having this sort of Middle Ages thing of get him, and put his face in the paper and, let's take apart his home and leave him and his family starving. That doesn't solve anything. That's just sort of like a vigilante vibe without no thought for consequence. So the real thing here and the real way to tackle it is with education and in the home. So when kids step out of line, you don't talk about people like that, and you make sure you have it fixed right from the start. But beyond that, what's a catapult for all this, what's a magnifier for all this, are the social media platforms. And the problem with the social media platforms is that they need to start behaving like decent human beings themselves, opposed to hiding behind their algorithms. And the sophistication is there to do it. I'm not having a debate with anybody about that. The sophistication is there to eradicate this almost overnight. So where? Well, it's very straightforward. First of all, you need loads of tech. Anybody know anybody that's got loads of tech? Oh yeah, that's right. There's Zuckerberg guy and Twitter. They've got loads of tech. And we need a ton of money. Yeah, we're going to need a ton of money. Anybody know anybody really wealthy? And oh, hang on a minute. This solves itself. So there's a guy called Scott Adams. And I'll mention his name for you. And he was discussing during the last US election. He made a very good point about how to make a direct impact on education and welfare. And he said one of the great things you could do if you were going to sort of think outside the box was to bring in these giant tech companies with all their money and all their tech and get them to troubleshoot problems that were inherent in both the systems, both the setup, education and healthcare. And what would you do for them in return? You give them tax breaks, massive tax breaks, because they'd make the country work far more efficiently. And this is what I'm suggesting here, or a version thereof. So let's look at Facebook. Reported revenues of $26.17 billion US for the quarter, which was up 48% compared with the year prior. I can't even speak English anymore. Facebook's net income grew 94% to $9.5 billion from $4.9 billion the year prior. So Facebook have got tons of money, tons of tech. And if Twitter, let's just get the numbers out there. In 2020, their annual revenue came to $3.72 billion US. So you've got two companies there that have got all the tech, all the money, and instead of hiding behind algorithms, they could either employ real people to monitor in real time, which wouldn't be difficult, because then that way you get nuanced interpretation of data, opposed to somebody said, say hate preacher or hate speech, and instead of just deleting that or hold it, just get the context. And because if we don't contextualize everything, there are some black people of colour, whatever you want to call it, who want to use the N-word. It's used a lot in rap music, etc. So contextually, it works for some people. So there is no reason why somebody should be able to post something awful about a footballer of colour and be able to get away with it. No reason at all. The Met Police have stepped in. And I think this is passing the buck to the wrong people. The police should be there to hand the people that we know have done it to the Crown Prosecution Service, literally offer them a bed for the night and then stick them into remand or whatever's going to happen. But they need to review the way the law works to accommodate the cyber nature of this stuff, because there's a big difference, and I'm not going to go through it here, between somebody reportedly being, reportedly being awful to their neighbour on a daily basis, and somebody's just sending off a tweet. They're both causing damage, but they both have to be assessed as different crimes, because essentially they are. But the sentencing here is absolutely shocking. And have I lost the thing? Yes, I have, but I found it again. So, Malicious Communications Act, that only offers 12 months in jail. And racially aggravated harassment only offers 2 years. So between the tech companies and a little tweak of the law, I think we can get rid of this. I really do. And I have to say, and maybe I'm speaking with white privilege, I don't care. I'm sick of all the virtue signalling. Stop kneeling, get up and take adult action against this. It's been rumbling on forever. Let's just get rid of it. Teddy Sheringham has told the Daily Mail that he'll be surprised if Harry Kane doesn't have some sort of deal in place with Levy. I think that's very wishful thinking. Goes on to say that there's a big gap there after Sergio Aurier's gone, and that Kevin De Bruyne and Kane would make for a force to be reckoned with, telling us nothing we don't know. But I can see a lot more of this coming from players of yesteryear and what have you before the screaming's over. Countdown to oblivion. It's now 29 days until the Premier League season starts. My fear is that Daniel Levy's clock tells him that he's got another week or 10 days on top of that, and that before the transfer window closes. But what we've really got here, and I think all too frequently, because things sort of just seep glacially, they sort of go under the radar and it becomes the norm opposed to what it ought to be. Our pre-season starts on the 17th. That's in a few days. Leyton Orient away, Colchester away, MK Dons away, Chelsea away, Arsenal at home. I mean, we've got 5 games there, peppered across the space of 10 days, and we're utterly unprepared for them. I mean, I see pictures of Nuno training, but there's no fresh blood in, and Harry Kane's not going to be there. He's gone off on a hollybob after his huff and puff and losing. I can't remember which newspaper it is, but it doesn't matter, because these are all the same. They're all written with the same thing, and like I said to you, they got rid of journalists and they replaced them with interns. And in this section of the Premier League fixtures and the pre-season thing, point to prove player at Tottenham is Dele Alli. Given Tottenham's total collapse in the last couple of years, most players are on some sort of watch, but none more so perhaps than Dele Alli. The midfielder was a key World Cup star for England just 3 years ago, and has since regressed in the Spurs ranks. Lost form badly in the latter stages, Mauricio Pochettino's reign, lost his first team place under Jose Mourinho, and now surely on his first strike under new manager Nuno Espirito Santo, ahead of what looks to be a testing campaign. Well, let's just clear something up, because there's a massive alarm bell statement in here. A key World Cup star for England just 3 years ago. So if that takes us to the 2018 World Cup, in the qualifiers, Dele Alli made 8 appearances, of which he was subbed off 5 times. Yep, just 8, came off 5. And in the 2018 World Cup actual games proper, he made 5 appearances and was subbed off 3 times. So 3 years ago, he was substandard. That's what that tells you. Revisionists? Nah, not round here, Gov. Right, that's it. I am absolutely certain that barring force majeure or something crazy, people arriving from another planet, that there will be no further Tottenham updates today. And I say that in a sort of voice in the hope that it might provoke the spirits into organising something. Thanks very much. Thanks for your time. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you again soon. Good luck. Keep it Tottenham.